something for you all to bear in mind. It's a recession when your neighbor loses his job. It's a depression when you lose your job. It's a recovery when Barack Obama loses his job. I know we're awful, but we just can't help it. Now, I'm really proud to announce this next speaker. Mandy Connell has been on WHAS for, I guess it's probably been 6 to 8 months, I'm not sure. And Mandy used to be a shock jock. And then when 9/11 happened, she said that changed her whole life. She became a talk show disc jockey. Or not a disc jockey, just a talk show host. Anyway, Mandy is a graduate of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. She's on WHAS every morning, Monday through Friday from 9 to 12. She's married, she's got 2 grown sons, 1 daughter, and I'm going to tell you, Mandy is a rising star in talk show radio. If you've never listened to her, she's the bomb. Anyway, it's my pleasure, and I'm proud to announce Mrs. Mandy Connell.
Now, somebody was holding out. I didn't know there was a fire back there. You know, the weather today is a little bit bleak, but one thing that isn't bleak are the attitudes of everybody who's sitting out in this lawn right now. I want to give you a little history of my history with the Tea Party. I know that all of you probably, this isn't your first go-round, this isn't your first political rally, although probably before 2 years ago you didn't find yourself going to many political rallies. A couple of years ago, when the Tea Party movement started brewing, it started brewing, you may remember, in January of 2008. In February of 2008, I was living in Fort Myers, Florida, and President Barack Obama came to visit. He came because Fort Myers is at the epicenter of the housing meltdown. At the time, it was #1 in the country in foreclosures. Our unemployment rate was hovering around 12%. It was kind of a disaster. So President Obama came down on what I started to call the Aren't We Pathetic tour. He came into Fort Myers to point out to the entire world how pathetic we were in Fort Myers. It was the most aggravating, insulting experience of my entire life. You know why? Because, yeah, I knew people who were out of work. I knew people who lost their homes. But you know what? They were trying the best they could to pick themselves up on their own, move forward with their lives, put the negative energy and negative economic news behind them, and get things done. They weren't looking for a handout. They weren't looking for anything, really. They just wanted things to turn around. They wanted the economy to turn around. They wanted jobs to become available again. And what we got was the president standing in our convention center downtown. What we got was a woman named Henrietta Hughes. Does anybody remember Henrietta Hughes? Henrietta Hughes was in the news for about 3 weeks because Henrietta Hughes stood up in Fort Myers and declared herself homeless. She and her son, her grown son, mind you, were living in their car. She wanted to know what the president was going to do to help her, how he could help her and her son get back on their feet. The president took her into a private room after the meeting and assured that she would get all the help that his administration could give. She got a place to live. She got it when a friend of mine, who happens to be married to a Republican congressman from Florida, gave them a house to live in that they were trying to sell and couldn't. They let them live there rent-free. They tried to set them up with job applications. They got them job interviews. The Obama administration did nothing but take the photo op and leave. Now, that's any politician's right, to give the impression of being more effective than they are, and politicians are excellent at that. Excellent at that. But it stuck in my craw. So as time went on in 2008, things started happening. And by the way, did I mention I was pregnant at this time? And we decided, well, I decided by saying on the air that I was going to have a tea party on April 15th. My husband, the event planner, immediately sprung into action, and we started planning what turned out to be a fantastic event, but we had no idea how we were going to do it. My company at the time had no interest in supporting any of this. They thought it was ridiculous. Who was going to be there? This is just dumb. So we went on the air, and I said to my listeners, look, we need some money. We got to get a little money together to make this happen. 2 days later, we had collected about $7,000. 2 days later. So we threw a tea party. My husband and by the way, did I mention I was pregnant? By this time, I am gigantically pregnant. There's like 3 of me on stage at this tea party, and it's Fort Myers, Florida, so it was about 785,000 degrees. And we're driving to the tea party event, which was in the late afternoon, and I'm looking at my husband. I said, nobody's coming to this. This is the stupidest thing we've ever done. It may be the hormones talking, but this is dumb, dumb, dumb. I cannot believe we put ourselves out there. This is just dumb. There's going to be 30 people standing in the yard. It's going to be horrible. 5,000 people showed up for that tea party event. Now, if you read the news media, several hundred people showed up for a tea party event. But it gave me so much hope. It gave me hope because finally I recognized, you know, when you're in the radio, you sit there and you got your microphone, and I can see my producer, and I actually have a window now to see outside. But you kind of sit there sometimes, you feel like you're talking to yourself. You don't know if people are out there cursing your name as you're talking on the radio, or if they're nodding along with you, if they're screaming, if they're yelling, if they're applauding, or what. So to see all of those like-minded people standing in front of me, angry about the same things, and so angry that they'd been moved to action, it was inspiring. It was incredibly inspiring. Now, since then, there have been a lot of smaller tea party events. We've had marches on Washington where, according to the news media, 40 or 50 people showed up. We've had all kinds of events happening all over the country where, according to the news media, 4 or 5 people got together. And as I've sort of identified myself with the Tea Party movement, I find myself having to answer questions about the Tea Party movement. And I always tell people the same thing. The people that come to the Tea Party movement might be angry, but they're not irrational. They might be upset, but they're not scared and fearful. They're not angry to the point of violence. They're just tired of the same old, same old. Now, today I'm here to charge you. You know, Les did a great job of giving you all the millions of reasons why we need to be fired up about this upcoming election. I'm going to take it down just a notch because I want to talk to you about how to talk to other people. It's one thing to talk at people. It's one thing to try and educate people. To me, there's nothing worse than someone saying, let me educate you about something. Let me educate you about something. But I got to tell you right now, how many people out there know people who voted for this administration? Now, I know it's incredibly tempting to go, yeah, how's that working out for you? Because we've all done it. We've all been smug. We've all stood there and looked and gone, yeah, good idea. I mean, who hasn't done that, really? Now's the time to start talking about what those votes really mean and what happened after that vote. Were you let down? How have you been let down? What has this administration done that you disagree with? Have you been shocked? Some people are going to stand by that vote. They're going to think they did the right thing. It was the right thing to do and never back down. You can't talk to that. But there are a lot of people who, like a lot of you, are recognizing that it's not so much a Republican versus Democrat thing. It is a party in power, a party out of power thing. This past week, I interviewed Senator Mitch McConnell, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, on my program. During the course of the conversation, I asked him as nicely as possible, because he is the Senate Minority Leader and you try to be respectful of people in these positions. I asked him as nicely as possible if he thought perhaps it might be better if the Republicans, instead of just standing for nothing and hoping we all vote against the Democrats, actually put forth plans that they would like to put in play should they take control of Congress. You know what he said? We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. People who are going to go to the Tea Party are going to vote for Republicans. What are they going to do? Vote for Democrats? Now, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that's what he said. I got to tell you, I'm not very happy about that. One of the legacies that I always tell people will come out of the Tea Party, I don't know how this is all going to play out in the long run. I don't know what's going to happen. But one thing I do know is that this grouping, the people that are sitting out here today are part of the re-education of America. When it comes to the founding values, when it comes to the principles that our nation was founded on, and it is going to be that education that's going to drive forward the change that's really needed in the country. Now, when I hear Mitch McConnell say, who are they going to vote for? They're going to vote for Democrats? I really just want to say no, but they'll stay home. If they don't get candidates that they feel represent their values, I mean, what's the difference at this point between a Republican like Arlen Specter, I'm sorry, now he's a Democrat, and most of the Republicans or most of the Democrats in office? Here's what I'm charging you with, and this is a very important issue. We all have friends and neighbors. Everybody does. If you don't, really, you need to work on that first and forget about the political stuff for a while. Everyone has friends and neighbors. It's okay to start a conversation with them. And by conversation,